Join us for a deeper dive into the Packers' first 3 draft picks and learn more about how we think the Packers will use these players in 2024 and beyond. Also, we will check in on our division rivals, the Minnesota Vikings, and see how they are looking for the coming season.
I've been wanting this shit forever. I've been in the field with whatever they throw at me. Brush it off, pick myself up, moving on to the better. Okay. Hey. Yeah. Ain't no errors, baby. It's a new era. I wake up early feeling rich like I'm Tesla.
All right. Hey, everybody. Happy to have you here for Sounds Gouda Podcast 3. Jordan Olson here with my co-host, Rob Relf. As you know, we're 2 best friends here talking about Packers football. Thank you for being here to our new and returning listeners. We'll have new episodes dropping every Thursday on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Coming up in today's episode, we are going to review the selections of Jordan Morgan, Edgerrin Cooper, and Javon Bullard, highlighting those players a little bit more and having some discussion about where they'll fit in 2024. And we're also going to look around the division, checking in on the Minnesota Vikings draft and offseason. So with that, I will send it over to Rob to get us diving into some of these prospects.
Yeah, so Jordan Morgan, first round pick, already underway with rookie mini camps, which is really exciting. Just get a little bit of some overview, strengths and weaknesses, and then, just a little bit of discussion. So a little bit of overview here on Jordan Morgan, and I do want to let you know that we are taking this from NFL.com. This isn't our own sort of thing on this, and we will try to, in the future, use a variety of different types of sources just to get you guys the most accurate information, and to also get you some different types of opinions and education on these players as well. So Jordan Morgan. 3-year starter who displayed his resilience and work ethic by coming back and playing a good football after suffering an ACL tear late in the 2022 season. He's a big dude, and he's fluid, and he's flexible in space. I think we can all see that, especially with all the videos trending on Twitter. With the ability to help spring running plays on the second level block and play side lead blocking. So he's really good on those screens. I've already seen about 3 or 4 of those tapes where he just boom gets out there and he's on the second and third levels immediately. I mean, this guy's got some speed to him. He fails to secure backside cutoffs too frequently, but improving his pad level and landmarks might fix that issue as some constructive criticism. We always do with these first round picks, right? There's a lot to work on. His punch approach diminishes his pass protection length and causes him to lose connection at the top of the rush. He will need to get his hands and feet synced up too to be able to prove a little bit of his balance and consistency. He's a capable run blocker and pass protector for sure. I know he did it up against Latu. Is that right, Jordan?
Yeah, Latu. Okay. Yeah, for sure.
I got a name right. Woo woo. And he features projectable upside with more work. So just some things to work on. He has the traits and the talents to be an excellent, a solid starting left tackle.
And this was NFL.com's pre-draft profile, right? So even in this note, I think it's important that NFL.com had him listed as a solid starting left tackle in his profile projection, right? So a couple strengths. Athletic in his lower body with the ability to redirect his weight in space. Runs his hips under his hands on dive blocks and kickouts. Grip strength that allows him to stay connected to run blocks longer. A well-timed combo block features patience and pop. Effective jump set helps eliminate rush pan and stall takeoff. Very good feel for depth of the pocket. Sideline quickness to catch inside counters, and can flip loose hips to aid in recovery when beaten. So a couple weaknesses go ahead, Rob.
You gotta have those loose hips.
Yes. Loose hips loose hips don't sink ships. I don't know where we go with that. Jordan loved being the ship. So a couple weaknesses, long arm defensive ends stab and can separate against him in the run. I think that's where the criticism about his short arms, so to say short arms has come in. below average landmarks, see him beaten across face-on cutoff blocks. Needs to fire his hands with greater assertiveness and reset when necessary. Inconsistent balance and body control throughout contact. Tendency to start falling during punch contact when opening side door, and allows weight to creep too far outside in pass slides. So that's what NFL.com had to say about him as a prospect. We've already talked about the Packers playing him potentially as a left tackle and the idea that they want to start him there, and potentially failing into guard if that doesn't work. But I think that's a great place for us to start our discussion, or kind of continue the discussion, is what is Jordan Morgan's role for the Packers in 2024? Is that at left tackle, or is that somewhere else? What do you think, Rob?
Bold take section right here for me. I say that he does not. Just my opinion. In my opinion, he does not take over left tackle. I think Rasheed Walker continues to play up to that level that he played with at the end of the year. What I do think, though, is that he takes over and immediately does that at right guard. Now, this is me assuming Rasheed Walker, Elton Jenkins, Josh Meyer, Sean Ryan / Jordan Morgan, and then Zach Tom, right? So that's my bold take. I know that's not too bold of a take, right? Anybody listening to this would probably be like, well, yeah, we could definitely see that happening, right? But so far in rookie minicamps, he has been playing left tackle. I mean, granted, he's not going up against competition. This isn't training camp. You know, they're going to play him at a spot that he's obviously familiar with and get him that reps and get him going, see what he can do. And he looks good so far. So, I mean, can he take over and beat Rasheed Walker? Absolutely. But at worst, like, you know, if he beats out Rasheed Walker, then Rasheed Walker becomes your swing tackle. You know, there was ebbs and flows with Sean Ryan there at right guard. Some games were better, and he was in and out, right? So he never really had a true chance to show you that full tape on some consistent games in and out. But, you know, he could play right guard too as well. So I think that would be interesting. Either way, it gives us just a lot of positional versatility when we do have injuries on the line.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it, there's a lot of possible starting 5 configurations, right? I mean, the simple thing would be to roll out what we ended the year at, and have Walker, Jenkins, Myers, Ryan, and Tom. You know, Ryan taking over full time for JRJ, and that puts us in a position where Morgan becomes our swing tackle. The Packers have not been afraid to make first round picks a project, and they probably see when Myers moves from on, probably after the 2024 season, we plug somebody else in on the interior, whether that's Zach Tom or another high-profile center we draft. Who knows? Maybe Jacob Monk will really show out and compete with Myers, or be the succession plan for him in 25. But that's certainly an option. You know, other options, Morgan wins that left tackle job. Maybe Rasheed Walker bumps over to right tackle. I'm not really sure who becomes our full-time, swing in that situation, and the option that Tom moves inside and either takes that center or guard position. But we talked about it a lot so far. The Packers have been talking about that, the versatility and adaptability. And you've probably been watching Twitter or X, and, you know, I think his movement skills definitely show on there. I was watching him in one drill where he was getting off the line, and I know we're talking about 5th and 6th round, 7th round picks here, but him compared to Monk and Glover, and actually Monk has a really great 10-yard split. You can see the difference in his burst and his get off in those film, in that video clip. So I do like his movement skills. I also was reading or hearing about a play where he went out on a screen and was ready to pick up a block and looked really fluid and moving on that type of play. And they passed the ball the other direction, but he would have been in a perfect position with his movement skills to make a great play and hopefully open up a lane for that player to get downfield. So
And remember, too, like the Packers drafted a left tackle before, Mr. Brian Bulaga, right? 2010. They already had Chad Clifton there. That didn't work out, and they needed immediate need on the right side. So they put Bulaga there on the right side, and the rest is history, right? He was a tremendous right tackle. So Packers have seen this play before, this script before. So either way, it just gives the Packers a ton of really good options. So
yeah, interesting thing about Bulaga too. I think there's some connections. They wanted to move Bulaga to the inside later in his career, and I think with the credentials that he had kind of built up, his status, he kind of told them to get lost. No, I'm going to stay out here and I'm going to play. I'm going to play a tackle until somebody comes in and beats me out, or you tell me that I'm not on this team any longer. But there was another guy very similar in his height, weight, and arm profile to Jordan Morgan. So we've seen those guys play tackle before. I do think that Jordan Morgan would be a great interior player to start 2024 if we want to leave those bookends the same way. And there's no guarantee that that's what that looks like for 2025, right? So
if you were to take a guess right now, what is your guess for the starting offensive line game one?
I tend to agree with you that I like Morgan on the inside. I don't think they're going to play him at center. I think he's a guard or a tackle. But I guess I'm starting to take a lot of stock in what this team is saying in the offseason. They have telegraphed most things for us right now. They say that he's going to be a left tackle. They're going to give him that opportunity. And Matt LaFleur is all about competition. So I think that competition is going to be open up until week one. And if that opens week one, I think we're only one injury away from seeing that whole equation shift. But I'm with you, Rob. I see him opening as a guard. And I guess I wouldn't be surprised to see him open at left tackle and give Rashid a chance to compete at right. And then all of that chatter we've been hearing off season about Zach Tom moving to the inside, that totally unlocks that. So we shall see.
Yep, we shall see.
So jumping into pick number 45, Edgerrin Cooper. So we'll give you his overview, strengths and weaknesses, and have some discussion about him. But Edgerrin Cooper, physical linebacker with elite top-end speed, with a burning desire to get to the football that can lead to some inconsistencies in his play. And I'll pause right there. I know over the weekend at minicamp, there was a fumble. I know there's a lot of conversation about that fumble belonging to Marshawn Lloyd, which it wasn't. I'm actually not quite sure, but it wasn't Marshawn Lloyd's fumble. I think Kalen King broke that ball loose, and Edgerrin Cooper ended up scooping that thing up and running into the end zone for what would be a touchdown. So you're already showing that he has the ability to get his nose to the ball. He can average. So getting back to this profile, he's average at diagnosing the run, but takes off around traffic on a mission to find the ball carrier once he sees it. He could be undisciplined playing his run fits and takes an unorthodox path downhill. Somehow he finds his way to slither around blocks and makes challenging tackles. Cooper is a punishing hitter and tackle from any spot on the field. He's going to overshoot the mark from time to time due to his lack of control and pursuit. He's a capable quarterback spy, can blitz the pocket, and will be an instant hit on special teams. But the teams will need to balance the inconsistencies with the passionate run to ball hit mentality. One thing that sticks out to me really quick before we get into his strengths is this idea of him being a capable quarterback spy. And some of the other draft profiles that I read, he probably is the best quarterback spy in this year's draft. That makes me feel a lot better about going up against teams with a mobile quarterback. We've had our issues there.
Caleb Williams.
Yeah, but I mean, I even think about the days of Colin Kaepernick running around in a
Oh my
49ers
God.
uniform, right?
Don't
And I
do
just
it.
have
Don't do it.
nightmares about that. Fortunately, outside of Caleb, there's not too many mobile quarterbacks in our division, but I do like that as a weapon and something that we can use. And despite this profile, right, which I think some people might think he might not be the perfect linebacker prospect, he's hands down the best linebacker prospect in this draft, and I think a home run at pick 45. So, what about some strengths and weaknesses, Rob?
Just plays with an absolute dog mentality. Just a dog of a player. Just has that.
There you go again
Just
with
has
that.
that.
There you go again with that dog thing. Listen to podcasts too if you want to hear my beef with the word dog. Sorry, Rob, keep going.
Yeah, just plays with a chip on his shoulder. He's just got that dog mentality. All jokes aside, we a little bit of that from the last episode, so go ahead and check that out on Jordan's take on the dog mentality. It's a good one. But no, he plays with a lot of passion and intensity. And you're right as far as a quarterback spy. There's multiple plays during the college season. I'm thinking of the one against Alabama. I think I brought that up last time. Just runs down the quarterback just super fast. Did that quite a bit in college and was able to get those guys behind the line of scrimmage before that they could take off around the edge. Much more responsive and decisive in 2023 than he was in 2022. Possesses elite long speed to walk down his tackle targets. Skilled block dodger. That's another thing I noticed too. He's very shifty. He's a little bit of a thinner build. He's not like 240, 250, big old linebacker, but the guy knows how to shed a block and go make a tackle. So, quarterback spies is really good for him. Any sort of screen passes and plays like that. I'm pretty confident in him being able to shed some blocks here and there from different people and to be able to make that tackle. Terrific job of sifting out screens and spying athletic quarterbacks. Like I was just saying, good blitzer with adequate cover skills as a zone dropper. And then brings the thunder as a forceful striker. So he's a really, really good tackler. Like he drives through his hips. He's not swaying at his arms. He's not he was diving at some of the ones when he was trying to get the quarterback, but that's because they were trying to get around the edge. But when he comes in to tackle somebody, he's literally using all of his force and driving through his hips. So that's what we want to see on the Packers defense is good tacklers, right? Get them down at that point of contact. Don't let them get the yards after carry. Some weaknesses: occasionally loses track of the football while searching in the mesh point. Could struggle with consistency of diagnosis needed inside. Needs to drop pad level when during block take-ons. So if somebody does get a hold of him and they do lock onto him, that's where you can see some troubles with that. Undisciplined with scrape technique and plugging his run fits. Also, lack of knee bend leads to some inconsistencies as an open field tackler at times. So with that being said, what role is best fit for Cooper in 2024, Jordan? Is he our day one will?
Yeah, I think that's probably the best place for him. For me, I think Quay is still our green dot. He's Mike for me. I think that you could see some interesting formations when we do have three linebackers set and we're in base, and then we probably have Isaiah McDuffie out there. And you had some takes on that, Rob, that maybe you thought McDuffie might end up kind of playing in the middle, and you leave our two more athletic guys on the outside, right? You want to talk a little bit more about your thoughts on that?
Well, okay. Let me first off say I think Quay's the Mike. That's my take. I think he's going to wear the green dot. I think he's going to call it the defensive plays. But if you are in 4-3 and you do have three linebackers out there, I could see the use for McDuffie to be in the middle, to be able to have a Quay and a Edgerrin Cooper on the sides to be able to utilize their speed, versatility, agility, tackling, screens, getting through the screens, that sort of stuff, to be able to go and make those open plays. Now, most of the time they are going to be in nickel, right? So you are going to have two linebackers there, and I would assume that would be Quay and Edgerrin. So in that case, then Quay is going to be your Mike linebacker. I do think he's going to be that, and then Edgerrin Cooper is going to be able to be your will and use his speed and versatility to be able to be off the edge and make tackles. So that's my take on that. No bold prediction there. I'm not thinking Isaiah McDuffie's going to be in the middle wearing the green dot calling the defensive plays, but I do see a little bit of some reasoning to it. And think that could be an option, although I don't think it'll happen, but I can see some reasonings to it. So that's just kind of my thoughts around that.
Couple other things. So one, we talked about this a little bit the other day, about this idea of the green dot, and while it's traditionally wore by your Mike linebacker, your middle linebacker, who's considered the quarterback of your defense, Rob and I kind of played around with the idea of what would it be like for Xavier McKinney to wear the green dot in this defense. Somebody the Packers have said over and over again that they want on the field nearly every snap, despite any coverage, can play single high, move him around. Somebody who has clearly established himself as a leader and is quickly becoming known to one of the Packers locker room. Would that free up the linebackers to kind of play freely and use Xavier McKinney's intelligence and probably his durability to be out there calling those plays over and over again? Not sure that will happen, but it's an interesting concept for us to think about. One other thing that even as we're having this, I guess, discussion here is thinking about Edgerrin Cooper being that quarterback spy. And I do think that is a little bit of a deficiency of Quay Walker, at least in what we saw during the Joe Barry era. I guess I don't know everything about playing linebacker because I never played it, but I feel like the QB spy is often somebody who does play Micah in the middle while you send your other guys to the outside. So that's just an interesting tidbit for us to keep track of. If he is the best QB spy, maybe he plays a little bit more in the middle. And I do see maybe in this defense, maybe there's some traditional positions that these guys line up at, but I expect them to move all over the place and kind of find the best guys for each game and each position. So
yeah, then that too, and you brought up the Xavier McKinney possibly calling plays. Typically, that obviously does not happen. Most of the time, that is your Mike linebacker. But in some certain cases, Derwin James specifically from the Los Angeles Chargers in the 2021 season, despite some injuries in those prior seasons, he was called upon to wear the green dot, as well as Jordan Fuller, Los Angeles Rams in the 2020 season. Fuller quickly became a starter in 2020 and earned the green dot due to his really good leadership and ability to communicate effectively. And then some other ones just here and there. Eric Weddle, you all remember from the Baltimore Ravens, his tenure with the Ravens. He was given the play calling responsibilities. And then our most favorite player, I hate to admit it, but he's a really damn good safety, Harrison Smith from the Minnesota Vikings, who we'll touch a little bit more on the Minnesota Vikings coming on after this, but he was occasionally thrust in the position as well to be able to call some of the plays for the Minnesota Vikings. So where it doesn't happen too often, I think that there's definitely a case for it. And I think Xavier McKinney is definitely one of those people, a captain with the New York Giants, a leader on that defense. I could easily see Hafley wanting someone like him to call the plays, to possibly free up a little bit of that. You're going here. This is the defensive play, but we'll get everybody set. Boom, get ready to go. So I think there's an argument for it.
Yeah, we're not totally grasping at straws, and it'll be interesting to see if that's something that's considered as we head into the season. So one more thought about the linebacker position in general. All the guys we've drafted, whether in the secondary or linebackers, all of these guys have been referred to as downhill players. We've all been pretty sick over the last few years of seeing these guys essentially catching running backs and players beyond the line of scrimmage and playing soft. So I do expect Quay to be more aggressive, but I expect them to use Edgerrin Cooper as that heat-seeking missile. And I'm going to be excited to see some cool blitzes drawn up in 2024. So moving into Javon Bullard, what's our overview on him, Rob?
Yeah, so just a little bit overview from him. He isn't a clean fit as a full-time nickel. He might lack the length and the range teams seek from a split safety, but he's a good football player with the field awareness teams are looking for. He's going to be a little tight with lateral movements, which will create some throwing windows and missed tackles from time to time. But his route recognition and angle of pursuits to be able to stabilize some of those plays is pretty compelling, and I think he'll do a good job at that. But there's going to be some challenging matchups. Georgia did provide the blueprint by playing him as a big nickel with run support quite a bit, and I think you saw that in that national championship game. He didn't have as much man cover duties, modest to say, but NFL teams would be wise to follow suit with the right fit. Bullard should develop into a quality NFL starter. And I think he'd be, really good on the Packers defense, depending on how much playing time he gets in there, and, not considering all the training camp competition with Evan Williams and Quinton Oladapo. But Jordan, what do you think some strengths are as far as Bullard goes?
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting reading these NFL.com profiles too, because some of this I definitely see show up in the tape, and some of it is a little different from what the Packers kind of project and put out there. A couple other strengths: plays with above average football intelligence and instincts, patient in reading and reacting to wide receivers' actions. Spatial awareness helps him navigate rub routes and pursuit angles. Has route anticipation to shadow breaks from off man. Attacks blockers with stiff punch to separate as a run supporter. And centers up and accelerates through the target as a tackler. So here's the second player in a row where we're talking about playing downhill, being a great tackler, going through the runner. So definitely a theme there. Weaknesses: could struggle covering large patches of grass as a high safety. Short strider, lacking comeback speed once he's beaten. Very average burst to close creates limited playmaking range. Needs to come to balance a little bit sooner as an alley runner. And tightness in the hips creates inconsistencies as an open field tackler. I really can't say that I agree with all the weaknesses listed here in the NFL.com profile. Again, watching some mini camp footage from over the weekend and looking at some of his footwork, I feel like he is pretty fluid. He opens up. The Packers clearly drafted him because they think that he is a versatile piece and somebody who can play single high safety. And that kind of leads me right into our discussion about Javon Bullard. So in minicamp so far, he's played almost exclusively at safety. And I know we've been here on this pod talking about his fit at nickel and even going as far to say, I personally think that's where he's going to spend a lot of his time playing in 2024. So with him playing all of his snaps at safety in minicamp, what do you think that means for 2024, Rob?
Not much. I don't take much stock into that. I think there's going to be a lot of I think there's a lot of time as far as training camp, preseason, being able to work his way up. I think they're going to be able to use him in the nickel as a free safety. I think they're going to get a lot of positional versatility out of him. I think they're going to be able to do a lot of creative things. I've alluded to this before in the previous two episodes, but maybe I'm completely wrong. And if I am, well, then, shame on me. But I just think that the kid can do a lot of different things. I see a lot of strengths in his game. I see a lot of versatility. Yeah, he's going to come in. He's going to have a lot of competition. So we'll see who wins that at the end of the day. But I don't take too much stock into that. I think they're going to use him in a multitude of different ways. What do you think, Jordan?
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, in minicamp, Evan Williams and him have kind of been splitting time between box safety and your back end traditional type of free safety role, despite not playing many slots in that snap. Actually, Kalen King saw a lot of snaps over there over the weekend. Um, but I really think we go back to the versatility piece, and I think that this is the perfect cross training for what happens if Xavier McKinney cannot be on the field, because I think Javon Bullard is the player that was drafted to be that primary backup, play that role on certain packages or some snaps when he's not in the slot. Um, so yeah, they're going to give him as much work as possible right now and through training camp to be Xavier McKinney's primary backup. And then when X, I mean, I think that's what they're calling him as one of his nicknames, right? Is X, Xavier McKinney's on the field. I see they get to use him in a variety of other ways. And I think that's going to allow them to disguise a lot of their defensive packages as well, this versatility. So,
And
yeah,
how can
so
you
that's a deep.
how can you not fall in love with the kid too after his clip of him on social media after him being drafted? I'm a fucking bagger, just going absolutely bananas.
There you go. You dropped the F-bomb again, Rob, making this an explicit podcast. So,
Damn it, dude, I'm 0 for 2, 0 for 3 now. I just
so you'll have to, so have to be listened to after hours. But yeah, I mean, that was great. And it wasn't the only Packer that, had a tremendous new Packer that had a tremendous reaction to being drafted by the Packers. But you got to love that. They get these guys in on top 30 visits. They do their homework. They want to find guys who want to be Green Bay Packers. We know that it's cold and frigid in Lambeau in December. They look for those culture fits, and day one, passing some initial eye tests there, and his excitement for playing in green and gold, and he gets to carry a little bit different kind of G, right? Because at Georgia they got that same G on their helmet. We're just switching colors now, so
yep.
So we're going to jump into our look around the division, and that's a series that we'll check out in our next couple podcasts as well. So I hope you enjoyed our deeper dive into a few of these prospects, and it won't be the last time we talk about those players. But let's take a look at the Minnesota Vikings. So Rob, would want to bring us up to speed on what they did in the draft, and we can talk about some of their other key additions and subtractions this offseason.
Yeah, so their general manager, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. If I butchered that, I totally apologize. We'll just call him Kwesi. Obviously, the coach is Kevin O'Connell. If there's some inexperienced listeners on here that didn't know, but so in the draft, the first round, I think we all knew that a quarterback was coming. We heard that they were trying to get up to that third spot. So whether it was them really, really wanting J.J. McCarthy and thinking that the Vikings were going to take McCarthy maybe, or if they really wanted Drake May, and they were trying to go up and get him. But I knew that there was multiple picks, including those 2 first-rounders, even another third or fourth, I believe, in that draft, along with another couple picks from the following year. And the Patriots said no. So, they stood pat, and they were able to get J.J. McCarthy 10th overall. A trade with the Vikings, or the Jets. Trade with the Vikings. Yeah, the trade with the Vikings for the Jets to move up 1 spot to get McCarthy. And then they made another big one, moving up 6 spots, the 17th overall to take outside linebacker Dallas Turner out of Alabama. I know he was considered probably 1, 2, definitely in the top 3 of edge players. You could debatably put Leilu Latu, again, just killing it with the names right now, in that mix for the top edge spot.
I think a lot of people,
So
Rob, had Dallas Turner as their number one defender in this draft, right?
yeah,
Which pains me to say that the Vikings might have walked away with their future franchise quarterback and the number one defender in this draft. But as you said, they paid a pretty lofty price to make those two moves, um, which could mortgage their future if these two moves don't work out for Kwesi.
well,
So
yeah. They traded the 11th, the 129th, and the 157th picks to the New York Jets for that one spot move up. I think they gave back obviously the one spot, but then a 203rd round pick as well. As far as Dallas Turner goes, they made that with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Sent them the 23rd pick, a 2024 fifth round pick, a 2025 third and fourth round pick to secure Dallas Turner. So they gave up quite a bit, put all their chips in as for a poker reference on these two players. So if they do not work out, that's going to hurt them pretty bad. So that was just some specifics on what they gave up to be able to move one spot for JJ McCarthy on the 10th overall, and then 6 spots from the 23rd to the 17th to be able to get, as you said, the number one edge in this draft, depending on who you're talking to. But I think the consensus board definitely had him as the number one edge player. So just to round it out, so 4th round, 108th overall, cornerback Kyrie Jackson out of Oregon. Jordan, I know that you were, before this, you were talking, you said that you really liked him too, so I think he might be a good cornerback. 6th round, 177th overall, tackle Walter Rouse out of Oklahoma. 6th round, 203rd overall, they got kicker Will Richard out of Alabama. Do you know where he fell as far as
I guess they need to replace Greg Joseph. So,
yeah.
Which is now a Green Bay Packer. We'll have that discussion later.
Do you know where he fell as far as like the kicker rankings? I didn't get as far as the kicker rankings, but I'm not sure where he fell at as far as like being the top kicker or not. I don't know.
No, I didn't do a deep dive on the specialists. You'd have to assume in every draft there's only 2 or 3 guys that are really draftable, right? So we'll see what happens with Will Ricard from Alabama. Might have totally butchered that name, but he's also a prospect that I have know little to nothing about, so wouldn't expect how to pronounce his name. And 2 7th-round picks, they took Michael Juergens from Wake Forest, an offensive lineman, and Levi Drake Rodriguez, Michael Juergens, an offensive lineman, Levi Drake Rodriguez, a defensive lineman from Texas A&M University Commerce. So as I really look at the Vikings roster, it's crazy to me the amount of turnover. Their list of key additions and key losses are about equally as long as one another. And their re-sign player list is pretty small and full of some pretty insignificant names in terms of household names that even us Packer fans, fans of a divisional rival would be familiar with. So some of those key additions, one we're obviously going to be pretty familiar with, Aaron Jones. It's going to make me so sad to see him in purple and gold, literally probably the last uniform I'd want to see him in. But the saga of revenge tour to Minnesota continues for these former Packers. Jonathan Bullard, defensive lineman. Jonathan Grenard, offensive or outside linebacker. Andrew Van Ginkel. Yeah, and then you've got Van Ginkel, former Wisconsin player coming from the Dolphins, another outside linebacker. Blake Cashman, another outside linebacker. Sam Darnold, which we'll see if he's a day one starter or if JJ McCarthy wins that job straight out. Jerry Tillery, Trent Sherfield, wide receiver. Dan Freeney, inside offensive lineman. Shaquille Griffin, cornerback. Camus Grieger Hill, another player I'm not familiar with, so apologize if I butchered that. Kicker John Parker Romo, which will obviously have some competition with their draft choice. But yeah, equally big a list in the losses. Rob, you want to run us down that list?
Well, we all know here, Kirk Cousins. That's the list. We can just walk away from the key losses right after that, man. Because I'm kidding, but that's the biggest loss. He went to the Atlanta Falcons. The second biggest one, Danielle Hunter. Obviously played for the Vikings, played really well for them. I know he was injured a couple times. He's a really good edge player, especially when he's healthy. He went to the Houston Texans. I actually cannot wait to see him on the Houston Texans if he can stay healthy. That's just going to make that DeMeco Ryans, CJ Stroud-led team and that defense just even more potent. And they were starting to catch fire there towards the end of the year into the playoffs.
That's
Anthony
my
Barr,
early. I was just going to say that's my early pick for AFC champions. How sweet would it be to see a Houston Texans Green Bay Packers Super Bowl this year? Early prediction, a very homer prediction because of course I'm putting the Packers in, but that's the matchup I want to see. So
yeah, absolutely. Sign me up for that. Jordan Hicks, linebacker, he went to the Cleveland Browns. I think I just mentioned Anthony Barr. Marcus Davenport, outside linebacker. Kyrios Tonga, defensive lineman. Again, I probably butchered that. I'm not too familiar with him.
Might just be Chris Tonga.
Okay. Yeah, it could be. I'm just going to call him Tonga. Defensive lineman. He's gone. KJ Osborne, wide receiver. Oh, man. They're just great with these names. Gouda, offensive tackle. Udo. Okay. He's gone. Josh Dobbs, quarterback. Obviously, Greg Joseph, kicker. He's with the Packers. Alexander Madison, one of my darlings last year as far as fantasy running backs go. We're not talking about fantasy, but that didn't work out too well. And then familiar name, Dean Lowry, defensive lineman, the former Green Bay Packer. That rounds out the key additions, losses, and draft picks.
So yeah, just to kind of put a bow on that, I think it's going to be really hard to project. I do see the Packers and the Lions still being a step ahead of this group. It's going to be a lot of new faces in Minnesota. I do think that Kevin O'Connell is a really great offensive coach. I don't know what they're going to do at running back and wide receiver. They're getting pretty thin on the depth chart there, even with bringing in Aaron Jones. Losing Alexander Madison as what could be probably a strong number 2 is kind of a big hit. And then KJ Osborne out the door as well. Very strong number 3 wide receiver in the last couple years. Obviously, they've got Justin Jefferson, but you start getting some injuries and the depth just isn't there on this roster for me. So I think they finished 3rd in the division last year. They're going to end up facing 3rd place teams from other divisions outside of our common opponents that we have. I think they got a few tough games on their schedule. If I look at their future home opponents, they've got the Cardinals, which, that's not going to probably be too tough a game. The Texans is a tough game they've got at home. The Colts could be decent, especially we don't know what Anthony Richardson's going to look like. The 49ers, Falcons, and Jets. Some very tough home opponents there outside of the division. Playing Jacksonville, the Rams, Seattle, Tennessee, and the Giants on the road. A few more winnable games there, but the fact that those are road games against some other teams that are kind of going through some transition, I kind of see those as a lot of those as coin flips, right? So I don't know. I see somewhere Vikings ending up somewhere around the 6 or 7 win mark this coming season, and I have a hard time giving them more than that. So
Yeah, so just some other additional closing notes. Obviously, we've passed a couple of days too. Jordan Love is eligible for an extension. We all expect that to happen. I have no idea when, and I know they probably still have some things to work out as far as that goes. But I think there's been a lot of conversation about 4 years, $50 million with whatever guaranteed. I think that's probably the going rate now. Could be a little bit higher. I've seen some of that 53, 54, 55 mil. I think that's reasonable too as well, considering the play of how he ended up towards the second half of the season, how he looks as the franchise quarterback. Some other ones I just wanted to note too as well, just from some rookie mini camp stuff. Peter Bowden looks like an absolute god at long snapper. I know Brett Gouda was really good, and I don't think I saw quite as an extensive video on Brett Gouda as I have Peter Bowden, but man, that guy looks just absolutely flush when he's snapping the ball. Some other things of note too as well. Packers decline Eric Stokes' 5th-year option. I think we all kind of assumed that was going to happen. Obviously, if he comes back and has a really, really good year, the Packers could decide to sign him to a longer extension. And Alex Magoo is now a wide receiver. So any other things on here that you do on some of these closing notes, Jordan?
Other than I just don't see how Alex Magoo possibly cracks a depth chart with the guys we have already. I mean, you're talking about Grant DuBose and Samori Toure being wide receiver 7 and 8 right now. I mean, good luck, Alex Magoo. But it would make an interesting story for a white wide receiver quarterback convert who runs a 4.6 40 to crack the roster as a wide receiver now. So back to my numbers fascination. We did get numbers from on the rest of those draft picks. Evan Williams, 33. Jacob Monk, number 62. Katan Oladapo, number 27. Side note on him, he is in a walking boot right now, but hopefully he will make a nice recovery and be ready for training camp. Travis Glover, number 79. Michael Pratt, this is probably the most interesting number choice for me on this list. Not that he's number 17, but that he is sharing number 17 with Anders Carlson currently. My guess is that Anders will probably win that job and he'll take number 2 or number 16 or one of those other numbers that opens up. But he's wearing number 17 right now, and Kalen King, number 34. So that's what I got on closing notes.
Yeah, well, all right. So we went through the first 3 draft picks. Expect on the next episodes we'll touch on Marshawn Lloyd, Tyron Hopper, Evan Williams. We'll make sure to do a check-in on the Bears as well, see where they're at offseason, key additions, key losses, overall draft, and what we thought of their draft and their future outlook. We can't thank you guys enough for coming on and listening to us. Me and Jordan do have a goal of trying to hit 1,000 followers, so make sure to make sure to hit that subscribe button. We would genuinely appreciate it. We are a little bit newer to this. We know that there's tons of really good Packers content, so that would just mean the world to us if you could do that. And then, make sure to find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well. You can follow us on there as well. You can connect with us on X. For me, it is Robber79, so ROBBERS 79, and Jordan's is Olson Jord, OLSONJORD, is where you can find us and connect with us a little bit more on X, and we're going to make sure to get back to you guys. So, until next time, Packers Nation, have a Gouda morning, a Gouda afternoon, and a Gouda night. Thanks so much for listening. Take care, guys.
Been wanting this shit forever. I've been in the field with whatever they throw at me. Brush it off, pick myself up, moving on to the better. Okay.